Your Honor.
Thank you. Your Honor, the Majority Floor Leader and I don't know who else made way for me to be able to speak because I'm catching a flight for a WHO engagement. And I had thought that I would be able to ask my questions next week. But are we in a rush to pass this bill? That's a question.
Are you asking me?
Of course, yes.
Are we in a rush?
Protocol dictates that I direct it to the Senate President, but the sponsor is the one who is going to
I
answer.
can't really speak.
And I was staring to the sponsor to answer. I said,
No, I'm just saying because I can't speak for the whole Senate. Obviously, I can only speak for myself. Of course, I'd like to. I sponsored this bill. I'd like to see it passed, and I speak for myself.
Because, Your Honor, for the record, I sponsored the CREATE bill, and that took us a year.
Yes.
I can give you the number of session days, the number of hours and minutes we defended that. And I'm not questioning His Honor, no? I'm just saying that for the record, bills of this magnitude take time. And I say this not just to his sponsor, but to the Filipino people na pinag-aaralan ho ng maayos to. Also to our colleagues, both in the executive and in the other house. The Senate has been known to take its time to study these measures, and this representation has defended similar measures. So yun lang naman ang sa akin, no? We want to study it well. I also like to listen intently. Senator Lauren asked questions, other colleagues asked questions, and I go through the journal, I look at what they said, I'm trying to see covered na ba yon yung concern ko. So yun lang naman ang sa akin, Mr. President, because I have an official function and I would have wanted to continue. So hopefully, madatnan ko pa when I come back. But in the meantime, I'm ready to proceed.
Yes, Your Honor. Just for the information of everyone, we did have four committee hearings. We've had three technical working groups. We've had a roadshow. This is my third day of interpellation, so I can speak for myself. I'm just doing my job and doing my best to answer all the questions for this bill. So, thank you.
Thank you. And it's good to know, it's good for the Filipino people to know that we had hearings, we had technical working groups, and that is all on YouTube, no? Pwede nilang panoorin yon. Ako na nagma-marketing para sa
Thank you.
sponsor, Your Honor. It's on
Thank you, Your
YouTube. Yung mga gusto rin na makarinig din ng mga nangyari doon, you can watch it there. But on the floor then, that's another venue for the senators to fine-tune the bill by way of amendments after they have also posted their question. Because if I'm not mistaken, the bill underwent revisions in its committee report.
Yes,
compared to the one that was initially submitted, correct?
Yes, there were
Yes.
quite a number.
So that's why the committee proceedings is different from the proceedings that are on the floor because it would be highlighted. So I'll start with that as my first question. What were the key changes in the committee report that His Honor filed on the floor compared to the original? Well, I guess was there more than one draft, and that's just
just to give some, just to give to the Mr. Your Honor, just to give you just to enumerate some of the changes. Some of the major changes, at least, I'll start with. One is where the source of funding. Of course, let's start with the incorporation of it. Now We've changed some of the structure, the corporate structure. We've made it more in line with the corporate code. So we've been more specific about that. Secondly, in the interest, the concern was brought up about the having a level playing field. And we did not, there are some who've expressed their concern that if the Maharlika was exempt from all these taxes, it would create an unlevel playing field between the fund and other businesses. So the fund is no longer receiving any special tax exemptions.
Okay.
So, and also in terms of which was, I think, it was the House version also. The GSIS, the SSS will no longer be required to or required or requested to invest in the bill. Also, aside from that, the composition of the board went from 9 directors from 15. So there was also a streamlining of some of the structure of the Maharlika. So there are quite a number, Your Honor, of changes that were
Okay.
made.
And
yes.
if His Honor, I can work with this, and if His Honor thinks of something that he would like to mention, I'm happy to accommodate at any time, because I'd like to go through that.
Yes, and I'd like to add also that the BSP was given there was a provision there to protect the BSP in case they need to institute changes in terms of their commitments regarding the capitalization. It's specified in the bill that should there a circumstance arise wherein the BSP feels that they would not be able to service their commitments, then they can they have some recourse and they can change the requirements that are specified in the bill.
Okay, thank you. I'll work with this, and then I'll ask you again later on if there's anything else you'd like to bring up, no? Just very quickly, and I'm pretty sure this is just structural. When you mentioned that the corporate structure is now in line with the corporation code, why? What was it before?
Yeah, before in the bill, there was no specific authorized capital mentioned, and now there is. So under the bill, there is a 500 billion peso authorized capital and 125 billion preferred shares and 125 subscribed.
Is that 125 subscribed and paid up?
Paid up.
So it's 125 subscribed
75
and paid up.
Sorry, 75 paid up, 125 subscribed.
So itong subscription ng, I'm looking at Section 6, yung subscription ng Land Bank of 50 billion, DBP of 25 billion, and national government of 50 billion, it says subscribed. So paano yung paid up? Further that the 125 pertaining to...
Yeah, because the Land Bank and the DBP will be paying it immediately. And as we mentioned in the bill, the BSP
50-75,
will
okay.
pay their 50 over the course of how many years?
So when you say national government, that effectively is BSP?
BSP dividends, because the Land Bank of the Philippines and the DBP will be utilizing their investable funds.
So is there somewhere here that says reference to national government in Section 6C actually refers to BSP?
It says your national government contribution is from the BSP.
Where is
Will
that?
be-
That's not in
where is it?
section. That's not in Section 6C. So where is it?
Here, here. It says here in Section 6, and I'll quote, the
Can you
contribution
just
of...
6 what?
the
6 what? Like can you the
6-1.
line number?
Page 4, number 1. Line 1, sorry. Page 4, line 1.
There it goes. Okay, it's in the next page. Okay,
Yeah.
no problem. I see it. No worries. Okay,
Okay.
just wanted to be sure that that was clear. So the next item on your list is having a level playing field, and you said the concern here was that the fund would be free from, well, the corporation would be exempt from tax, and this was removed. Were there other concerns regarding the level playing field other than taxes? Are there advantages? Of course there are, because it's a government, it's a GOCC. So
Well, also, other things were included. It's not guaranteed. The government is not guaranteeing. The MIC is not guaranteeing the investments. At the same time,
sorry, what do you mean by that? The MIC is not
guaranteeing.
guaranteed.
It's not when they invest, it's not guaranteed. Their investment is not guaranteed.
I thought there's a sovereign guarantee. Wala ba? Tanggal na rin yon.
No, it's not. It's
But
not
there
in this version.
wasn't that an original provision?
Yes, it was.
Yeah,
but
so it
it's no
wasn't
longer.
mentioned. So that I think that is key.
Yeah.
That is key. So I will include that as one of the major changes in the committee report. There is no more sovereign
yes,
guarantee.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
And also, if I can add, also there in the committee report, there's no longer any requirement for them as to how they spend the dividends of the Maharlika. So there's no.
So in the
in the
original
there was
bill,
a requirement to spend a certain amount for certain social services and projects, which was no longer in the committee report.
you mean the shareholder was originally required to spend their dividends a certain way?
Yes, there was a
Ang
requirement
tindi
in the
naman nun.
original bill. Yeah,
Is there
there
such a
was.
thing?
Well,
Never heard
in
of
the
that.
original bill, in the prior to the committee report, but that was removed in the committee report.
Okay, I'm glad that was removed because it's a bit outrageous. I mean, even if it's for causes that I believe in, no, parang that's a curtailment of the right of the. I think that's the right of a investor to to spend their dividends. Otherwise, you're like a controlled. You know, I mean, maybe that happens. I can't say that I'm an expert in. I do have a corporate law background, but I'm not an expert in how this works, and I can't recall that I've heard of that. Okay, so again, feel free if there's anything else, no, because these additions that His Honor gave are very helpful.
and also it's covered by the GCG. That was a topic, and also it's covered by the procurement law, the Maharlika. Also, so I'll add those if I can add those two also.
Sorry, and it's
Your Honor.
covered by the procurement fund.
RA 9184.
Yeah, okay. They have to comply.
Yes.
All right. Okay, and then this is an important one. Okay. His Honor mentioned that GSIS and SSS will no longer be required to invest as was part of the original plan, no? So now they will no longer be required to invest. 'Di ba may iba pa dito? Hindi lang to, ano pa bang mga ibang GOCCs?
In the-
GSIS, SSS.
Pag-ibig, other GOCCs,
That were originally included in the required investors list.
HDMF, the Home Development Fund,
That's it?
Pag-ibig. Pag-ibig.
PhilHealth? Was PhilHealth included?
This was the one submitted to the. SSS. Yeah, SSS also. SSS. Yeah, I know that. What are they? Yeah. Okay, big. Phil. Phil else is included. Yeah. Okay. Yes, PhilHealth was also included in the ones that were removed from the original.
Sige. So I will summarize, and His Honor can tell me if this is accurate. According to His Honor, in the original proposal, GSIS, SSS, Pag-ibig, and PhilHealth, I don't know if there are any others, were mandatory investors in this Maharlika bill. Correct. That's the first statement.
Actually, in the original. Just to clarify, the ones that we said that can, so we expanded the list of those that cannot invest in the original bill, it was GSIS and SSS. During the new bill, just so it's clear, we added that even other social institutions will not be required or requested.
Okay, so you're saying that the committee report actually took out GSIS and SSS and went further by saying that other social, what do you call them, social institutions will not be required
Yes, it
to
says
invest.
specifically, in quote to quote, under no circumstances shall the GOCCs providing for the social security of government employees, private sectors, workers and employees, and other sectors and subsectors, such as but not limited to GSIS, Social Security, Home Development Mutual Fund, be requested or required to contribute to the MIC. So
Okay.
those are just mentioned, but
Be
not limited,
requested,
or
Yeah.
required.
Or required to contribute, and that is section 6.
6.
Tama ba? Section
Yes,
6.
Section 6.
Be required to contribute to the MIC. So are we talking about initial contribution during the period of incorporation, or are we talking about contributions throughout the lifetime of the corporation?
Well, the initial capitalization will be
Just the three.
committed by the three.
The three that are mentioned.
Yes.
Yes.
Now, the rest, they will neither be, as stated there, they will neither be required nor requested
Okay,
to invest.
So definitely they're not in the beginning, in the inception, because they're not listed here.
Yes.
And that is very specific. No, it doesn't say including others, right? Tama ba?
Including others?
Shall initially be subscribed by the following. So these are the only subscribers A, B, and C, right? In section
Yes, for the
6,
initial
yes.
capitalization, that is
Okay.
correct.
And then you have a provision later on that says, under no circumstances shall the GOCCs providing for social security of government employees, et cetera, be requested or required.
That is correct, Your
So
Honor.
meaning to say, they won't be requested, there will be no formal request or an informal request, they will not be required, but they can voluntarily contribute.
That is correct, Your Honor.
How does one voluntarily contribute when they are a GOCC and their heads are appointed by
Well,
no
that's
less than the government
that's
itself?
a decision for the board, I suppose. That's a decision for their boards.
But does His Honor actually think that gives comfort to the Filipino people, given the Blue Ribbon Committee hearings we've had, all these investigations? It's an honest-to-goodness question, Your Honor. Does that give His Honor comfort?
I think the GSIS is a very professional organization. I think it's proven that over the years, and SSS, and they've proven to be very competent
So he's
doing their
al-
fiduciary duties and I think
So he's al-
yes, I am confident.
So His Honor is not aware of situations in the past where heads of GOCCs were somehow agreed to certain agreements that later on, and I know there are provisions here that says bawal to enter into transactions, disadvantageous to the government. Talagang yung utak natin, punong-puno na, even every Filipino knows that phrase already, yung mga disadvantageous to the Filipino people. Is His Honor has 5.5 years to go. In my how many years na ba ako? 12 plus 3, 15. In my 16 years, the Blue Ribbon Committee is always so busy investigating these things. So I'm genuinely curious if this did not cross His Honor's mind. Is it not His Honor's... May concern ba tayong ganon? Kasi we know that this is a
I'm not
priority
naive.
bill.
Yes.
And and the Senate does have a history of doing its best, at least the majority, of course, but the minority has always been as supportive as possible to support the administration's measure. So we take the lead from the sponsor. So I hope His Honor will understand that I need to ask this question because His Honor is the one who spent hours and hours studying, discussing. And me being the Senate's futures thinking, di naman expert, practitioner, parang takot ako na ma-foresee na yung next order of business natin in a few years will be the investigation of, hindi naman sila ni-request, hindi naman sila ni-require, pero nag-volunteer sila, tapos ayan na yung mga initial sa mga papel. Yun lang naman, Your Honor, I want this to be on record kasi ang laki nung tinataya natin dito eh. And if I may just add one last point, ito nga yung mga GOCCs providing social security measures. And I will just speak for the health sector. Every year, Your Honor, 70 billion ang hinihingi na extra funding ng PhilHealth taon-taon. Every year, ang nabibigay lang natin sa kanila is maybe an extra 5B kasi hindi rin nila maayos-ayos yung kanilang mga finance and accounting. Hindi ko pa, I haven't, for the sake of this hearing, for the sake of this interpellation, I haven't really had the chance to look at how much of their funds are invested in other investment, but alam ko na nga, may board of directors, pero those same board of directors were the ones who on their watch, hindi nababayaran yung mga ospital, magsasara yung mga private hospital dahil hindi nababayaran. So, and I'm not even attributing malice pa. I'm just saying na yun ang mga nangyayari under their watch. So,
Yes, Your Honor. Well, if you're asking if I am naive to the government...
no, I'm not asking if you're naive. I'm just asking for your comfort level in this matter, Your Honor.
So I'd like to just state also for the record that I think if we're talking about the funds, I mean the security of these funds that will be that will be invested in Maharlika, in the bill there are numerous controls in place that in fact in terms of controls I think there's a lot of relative to other organizations there are a lot of controls. Of course there's to start with there's the advisory board who will be composed of the Treasury Department, of the DBM, the NEDA. Aside from that, there will be an external and internal auditor. There will also be 9 directors who will be chaired by the Secretary of Finance, who will be joined by representatives from the private sector, the Land Bank, the DBP. There will also be representatives from the MIC itself, from the organization. And there will also be government oversight, congressional oversight group from the Senate, from the Congress. It will fall under the COA. It will also follow COA rules. They will also follow procurement rules, RA 9184. And there will be a risk management committee also. Yes, that will also be monitoring the Maharlika. So I guess in terms, if we're talking about the controls within the fund to protect the funds, the money that is put in the fund, I think that these concerns were well taken up in the law, and it's quite robust, I believe. My personal belief is I feel we always have to balance. We can't. It's hard to constrain them also, but there are a lot of controls in place that will ensure the security and that these funds are being safeguarded and invested in a very wise fashion. Your Honor.
Thank you, Your Honor. I'm listening intently to His Honor's response, and I'm also looking at the bill itself. His Honor mentioned that there will be 3 independent directors from the private sector. In other words, these independent directors have nothing to do with the investments being made. No, it's not investments in corporations that they are involved in or related to. Is that correct? I know there's a definition of independent director, but is my definition more or less correct? Ito na, nakita ko na.
It's in the law, actually.
It's in the law. The
Yeah.
independent director shall not hold any business or financial interest in other relationship which could or could reasonably be perceived to materially interfere with his exercise of independent judgment in carrying out their responsibilities as director. Your Honor, I have a hypothetical situation.
Okay.
There are 9 members of the board. Let's say for the sake of discussion, 3 independent directors, or for that matter, 2 independent director and 1 regular director, 3 objected. of course, they would be overruled, right? Kasi 9, no? 9. So if 9 are present, then only 3 objected, 3 out of 9. What are the chances that these decisions would be reviewed by Congress in a timely manner to allow the safeguarding of public funds? Are those deliberations immediately made public? Is there a degree
It's
of
mentioned in the bill that
confidentiality?
everything, yes.
Can I see?
It's mentioned in the bill that all, yeah, where's this? Section 41. Sorry. Yeah. Here. In Section 41, the right to freedom of information of the public, all documents of the MIF and the MIC shall be open, available, accessible to the public, including but not limited to all investments thereof, whether planned or under negotiation by the MIC and in the portfolio of the MIF, the statement of assets and liabilities of the members and officials of the Board Director, Risk Management Unit, and Advisory Board, the SAL-Ns of those who appointed, designated said members and officials, audit documents from the internal auditor, external auditor, and the COA.
So what about minutes of the board, where, as I said, there were some who objected, and then what about
in general, the
discussions?
minutes of any board meeting, of course, is public. Yeah, it fall under these documents. These are very regular corporate documents, the board, and they fall under these definitions.
So what documents?
The records on the MIC pertaining to its investment activity shall be secured and maintained pursuant to the rules of the National Archives of the Philippines. The disclosure rules under Republic Act Number 8799 or the Securities Regulation Code, Republic Act Number 11232, or the Revised Corporation Codes of the Philippines, and so on.
Are there documents that will not be available to the public?
No, I'm not aware of any documents there should be no documents that won't be available to the public.
Are the
In terms of the minutes of the meetings, of the meetings,
Yeah, I don't
everything is a
know.
public document.
I don't know what those documents would be, so I'm asking if, as far as His Honor is concerned and the resource person, there are no types of documents that would not be available?
Yes. Especially under the corporate code. And most companies are very required to maintain these documents. So these documents are available. I can't think of any.
Congressional oversight can actually ask those.
Yeah, and like for any GOCC, the government can ask for any documents that they may need to
Okay.
conduct any kind of investigation.
Okay, thank you, Your Honor. Would His Honor be open to an amendment that would prevent these government corporations that provide social services from contributing, so that there is actually no opportunity for the crossing of that line?
Your Honor, the amendment is that we would disallow our any of the social
Yes,
these
as a-
funds
as a-
to invest
yes,
in
as
the
a protective
Maharlika.
measure, Your Honor.
I mean, of course, there's. I think we should also consider this, maybe. Consider this, that these funds, they also invest in other activities not related, not even sometimes in funds that aren't even investing in the Philippines. Now, the whole purpose of this act is that we use some of our investable funds, or one of the main purposes anyway of this act is that we use our investable funds to invest in projects that have a social economic benefit to our country. If there is, if we prevent them from investing, and if they're allowed to invest in other funds that invest perhaps in other countries, why would we not want them to invest in our own country? That would be my only concern there. We don't want to require them, but if they can earn a good return, and if they can invest in businesses that help our country, why would we prevent them from doing that? Your Honor, that is my concern.
So His Honor earlier mentioned that these social service GOCCs, he assumes that their board of directors would exercise, well, in my own words, exercise the due diligence required of them to choose their investments, and the entire resource group of His Honor is nodding their heads. No? So I'll take that as a yes, Your Honor. And then at the same time now, His Honor is saying that if the Maharlika Corporation will be investing in other investment opportunities, why would you prevent them? Well, I'll ask His Honor this question. What is the main purpose of the existence of these social security corporations? It's to provide a social service. It would be great if they have additional income, but that is definitely secondary. Would His Honor agree?
Well, the SSS, GSIS, they have investable funds. Their whole purpose is to maximize
Correct.
the money that's put in by their membership.
And I agree with that. And I agree.
And if they can do that through, assuming, I'm not saying that maybe it may not be, maybe they won't invest anything. Maybe they won't find it as maybe the returns won't be acceptable to them, and that's fine. But for instance, if they invest in funds like the Global Infrastructure Fund, and the Maharlika can also, the Maharlika Fund, which invests in local projects, can also give them a satisfactory rate of return. In my mind, why should we prevent them from investing in that? Especially since it's for infrastructure projects in our own country. So, yun lang po, Your Honor. I guess that's where the, as much as, of course I understand your point and I respect it, but I just wanted to make that point also, that maybe we don't have to prevent them from, we don't have to ban them from investing in the Maharlika Fund, which is designed to invest in projects with prioritizing local infrastructure that give us a high rate of return.
Mr. President, thank you for His Honor's explanation. My response to His Honor's explanation is as follows. If His Honor agrees that the principal purpose of existence of a GOCC providing for social services like PhilHealth is to provide for health, and yes, they are allowed under their own, they are allowed to invest in funding, but they must do so prudently. Would it not be prudent on our part in Congress to not increase the exposure of the Filipino people such that if the Maharlika Fund fails, and before I continue my question, there's no guarantee that it will be successful, correct?
There's no guarantee.
Yes, okay. So let's not debate that, no, because we both know that with prudence, hopefully it does very well, right? But there is no guarantee. So if 125 billion pesos is already going to be invested there, would it not be an acceptable amount of prudence that the security, the GOCCs providing for the Filipino security, yung kanilang health security, yung kanilang home security, wag na lang din dumagdag pa doon para lang in case hindi siya naging successful, hindi na siya nadamay. Would that not be a prudent thing to do?
In the financial world, usually in order to maximize the returns for any investment, you have a healthy mix of investments in any pool. You pool these investments together because statistically, there's less risk. So therefore, a fund such as GSIS or SSS, of course, a bulk of their funds will be invested in very safe securities, mostly T-bills. But at the same time, they're also mandated to maximize the funds. They have to beat inflation. They have to be, they're trying to beat inflation. so that the value of the money of those members don't go down. In order to do this, they want to achieve a rate of return that is higher than perhaps T-bills or the SAFE, which is backed up, which is a sovereign guarantee. But of course, in order to do that, you have to perhaps invest in other things like equities. While they don't guarantee a specific return, they do guarantee you have an upside. So part of their investment strategy will always include a pool for safe investments, and then they'll also have a pool for other investments, such as it can range from equities, perhaps other investments that they might see a higher return. But of course, we all know that this is a risk and return business. That's why we have specific people who deal with what the specific risk for each investment is. Now, we're not saying that they should invest in MIC. We're not requiring that they invest in MIC, but we're just saying that if, based on their studies, they see that it is profitable for them to invest in an equity, especially if it's an investment in our own country, then they can have that. Maybe it should be. There's nothing wrong with giving them that option, Your Honor. That's just, I guess, in terms of investment. Of course, the GSIS has very stringent rules when it comes to their investment, and the majority of their investments will always be in safe securities. But of course, in order to maximize the value of for their members, they also want to diversify their portfolio into other things, including which is equities. And I'm saying that if they've invested some of their funds in funds such as the Global Infrastructure Fund that invest in infrastructure not in the Philippines, why would we not give them the opportunity to invest in a fund if it's doing well and if it's investing in our own country? I guess that's my point. I mean, that there's really, in their portfolio of investments, there'll really be a place for investments in equities and other instruments that would probably generate a higher yield. But of course, there's a little amount of risk, which is up to the board of directors to decide on their risk appetite, Your Honor.
Thank you, Your Honor, for that. I'm a bit familiar. I was investing also since I was after college, so I'm familiar. And what we want the Filipino people to understand is there is such a thing as diversification of your investment, no? And depending on your risk appetite. Kung sabi nga nila, kung bata ka pa at marami ka pang kikitain, you can risk more. Pagka retirement age ka na, huwag ka na masyadong mag-risk kasi yung ability mo to earn is much less. And so what you then need would be regular income. Now that's the very simple explanation there. So gagamitin ko yon for the Philippine economy. There is already 125 billion at least initially going to be invested by Philippine institutions in this corporation, and I am forwarding the proposal that maybe to give us more security such that because there are risks involved, wag na natin talagang payagan na mag-invest pa yung mga social security, and that's a general term, no? Social security GOCCs natin, para in the event na hindi kumita ito, in the event na malugi, hindi nga madamay yung pera ng nandun sa GSIS, yung pension ng ating mga government workers, yung SSS, pension ng ating mga private workers, and then yung pangbayad ng mga hospital bills ng ating mga Pilipino. Ikaiiyak ba nila kung naging super successful po ang Maharlika Bill? Sasabihin ba ng board ng mga PhilHealth and GSIS, sayang hindi tayo sumama doon? Yes, maybe. Pero naman, ikaluluhod nila at ikamamatay naman nila kung malugi yon. Yun lang naman po yung sa akin. In terms of diversification of risk of the Filipino money, ang point ko is, wag na sanang masama yun dito sa pool na ilalagay dito. Kasi yun nga yung social security, kaya sila very conservative. I will put on record sa PhilHealth, ang investment nila sa specialty savings and deposits, nasa 75 billion. In fact, ang pera nila is nasa Land Bank and DBP. So for the record, yung pera ng PhilHealth na 75 billion, di kasama na yun sa mapupul na imalalagay. So tama ho ba ako? So pag pinayagan pa natin silang mag-invest dyan, in addition to this 75 billion, which is a part of the Land Bank funding, magdadagdag pa sila. Di sana wag na. Yun lang ang sa akin. Sana wag na.
I respect your opinion, Your Honor, and
But I hope
Okay.
His Honor would take a look at this. Does His Honor know these numbers? Itong specialty saving deposit ng PhilHealth, 75 billion is in Land Bank and DBP.
yes.
And so yung funding na manggagaling sa Land Bank and DBP is 75, tama ba? 75 billion din. Nasaan na ba ako? 50 billion and 25, 75. So kung tutusin, I mean, I know hindi lang naman yan ang pera ng Land Bank and DBP, pero pwede I can argue na, buong savings siya buong investment ng PhilHealth yan, kahalaga ng buong investment ng PhilHealth ang ipapasok ng Land Bank and DBP.
Yes, I respect your opinion, Your Honor.
But His Honor is not bothered by it?
As I said, Your Honor, I mentioned earlier, regarding the risk factors, the idea, a lot of these institutions, they do have these risk return, they have actuarial experts who decide on these things. And majority of their assets are even in any bank, almost all their assets are in very safe T-bills, government securities that pose little risk. But there is that appetite for these kinds of investments. And I'm saying that the Maharlika is also a good, in terms of investment opportunities, I think it is a good investment opportunity. And I'm speaking of this because I was Public Works Secretary, and I know a lot of the projects that have gone through the gamut of requirements that the NEDA has pushed through. They know they yield a very high economic, they pay a lot for these studies that show that they yield a very high economic rate of return, and in the bill, the NEDA will go through these flagship projects, and they can yield a very high rate of return. So I'm not saying they should invest all, and they will not, because that's not in their, I'm sure they're not allowed. They have very stringent requirements as to how much they can invest in things like equities. So I don't even think they could even invest that much, even if they wanted to. But again, I think if you're going to ask me if the Maharlika is a good investment, it's an investment in projects for the Filipino people that can invest in a high return. And if for me, that's a good investment. Ako, kung sasabihin mo sa akin, mag-invest ako sa kakayahan ng Pinoy, I'll invest in that every day, anytime. So,
Sorry, Your Honor, ano yung last statement?
kung mag-invest tayo sa kakayahan ng Pinoy, sa mga projects na makakatulong, yung mga socio-economic projects ng mga Pilipino, magandang investment naman yun. So, para sa akin, magandang investment ang Maharlika Fund. I don't think we should deprive, if there's an appetite for that, I don't think we should ban or ban funds from putting a little investment in this Maharlika Fund.
Well, I have a different opinion, Your Honor. I'll move on to a next topic.
And then yung Land Bank, sinabi niya, pwede po 6 may deposits.
I read here in the bill that this bill will exempt the employees and the staff basically from the salary standardization law, right?
Yes, that is correct.
Oo. Your Honor, I have another problem with that as well because as we speak, all over the country, kulang na tayo sa nurse, sa physical therapist, sa occupational therapist, sa midwife, sa radiology technician. I already mentioned nurses, no? And then doctor, yung specialty hospitals nga, even though I'm a co-sponsor of that, I will put on record na how will we catch up with the demands of these health professionals. Let the record say that, show that the majority floor leader is pounding his lap with a face of frustration. That is a fact, Your Honor. And so many of these LGUs are more than willing to pay more, but they are limited by the salary standardization law. And here we are, providing for an exemption. If I am going to provide for one exemption, it will be for health workers, Your Honor. Hindi ba dapat yun ang unahin natin? Bakit itong fund pwedeng may exemption samantalang yun ang pahirapan? Ang ire-request ko is let's discuss this bill. I will file a bill to also exempt the health workers and let's pass it together. Kasi hindi ko maintindihan kung bakit ganun. And as we speak, actually I don't have to file a bill. Sa CDC bill ko pa lang, which is on the floor now, we also want our scientists, our doctors, our researchers who can protect us from the ravages of the like of COVID and any other health, public health emergency. To be clear, Your Honors, ang public health emergency hindi lang virus ha. Pati ho ang effects ng sigarilyo, ng vapes, ng bad nutrition, yung nagiging resulta heart attack, stroke, etc., diabetes, lahat yan covered ng public health emergency. Hindi sila exempt sa salary standardization. So, is that a provision His Honor is willing to remove? Because I know the answer is going to be, but we want competent people. But don't we want competent people everywhere? The funding
well,
that
I
we will
think
put in there will kill people.
Your Honor, I think that these are the people that we would require to manage this fund. We have to be offered rates that are competitive with the private sector. And that's just the reality.
And it is also...
And I understand your point completely, but I'm just explaining the logic behind this provision, Your Honor. It's that we feel, and of course you can disagree with this, but we feel that there are certain jobs that require a level of expertise that we would need some flexibility in order to hire the people who could best manage this fund and best give the government the best return on its capital. So in the end, these things, if we have to invest a little more in a few good people so that we can maximize the return for our country, because all the income of this fund, because we're trying to maximize the income for our investments in this, I think it would be more prudent to allow the Maharlika some flexibility to hire the people who are best qualified to perform the needed jobs to maximize the returns of this fund.
And I do not disagree with His Honor. I would also want a fund of this magnitude to be managed by the best. I am simply pointing out to the sponsor and to the economic team that is behind this bill that as we speak, Filipinos die because we cannot provide sufficient professional help for them because the salaries are also low and they are bound by that. And we as a Congress cannot look at our bills in isolation. We cannot work on one bill without thinking of what is the effect on the other bill. We pass this bill and we say, dito tayo nag-salary standardization exemption, di na tayo pwede mag-salary standardization sa iba dahil kumbaga nauubos na yung pera. How do we move forward? I mean, we've got to have a minimum amount of protective measures for the immediate welfare of people, not just a potential welfare. Because this is potential welfare that we're talking about, Your Honors. This is potential, itong bill na to. Ang sinasabi ko is, in the now, people are dying. There's not enough doctors. There's not enough health workers. And we need to fund them and also consider their salary cap. I know we probably disagree unless I can sway His Honor, but that is the reality. This Senate should not be making decisions on a per meal item, but look at the bigger picture because in 4 months we will be discussing the annual budget and then we're going to go back to that. Kulang pa rin. And this is where we put the funding. So I have to put that on record, Your Honor, because that is the reality that we face.
Yes, Your Honor, yes. And I'm very sympathetic to all government workers who have salaries that are less than what they need. And that's something that's malaking problema po yun. Yung mababang sweldo, at alam ko naman na malaking concern po ito sa ating mga kababayan. Ang solusyon po sa mababang sweldo, kailangan po natin payamanin ang ating bayan, kailangan natin ng mga income-generating sources. And sa tingin ko, ang Maharlika po ay isang income-generating source para sa gobyerno. Ultimately, how much we can pay our workers will depend on how much wealth we can generate for the country. And I think it's time that we start thinking about how we can generate wealth for the Philippines. And we're saying now that we believe that by investing in infrastructure projects that yield a high rate of return, we can put our money in investments that would increase the wealth of our country and give us the necessary fiscal space to increase the salaries of our workers in government. I'll give you an example. When I was Secretary of DPWH, we had many projects that were funded through debt, and this debt payments would crowd out payments in other departments, other social service departments. When you have a fund like Maharlika that is designed to invest in local infrastructure projects, you can utilize this fund to fund certain flagship projects, freeing up fiscal space in our budget. At the same time, this fund can generate wealth for the country. Now, I'm not saying that hindi naman perfect ang fund, but that's the goal of the fund. And I think it's definitely worth investing in, because we really need to generate somehow better returns for our investable funds in government. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you, Your Honor. Well, as I mentioned earlier, I have a flight to catch, so I will end my interpellation, suspend my interpellation for now. When I return, I will just be gone for 3 days. I hope to be able to continue, if not in the period of interpellation, in the period of amendments. If I were to summarize my concern would basically be, yes, it is a fund that could generate income, but the underlying word here is could. It's a possibility, but it is not an assurance, and we should not in any way add to the uncertainty by allowing or including or even accepting investments from our corporations such as PhilHealth, GSIS, and SSS from investing people's money in these funds. Again, I pointed out already na yung investment nga ng PhilHealth pa lang, 75 billion na nga ang naka-invest sa Land Bank and sa DBP. And 75 billion ang contribution ng Land Bank and DBP. So, sobra-sobra na yun sa pananaw ko, Your Honor. I thank the gentleman for his time. I wish him all the best in the defense, but I also hope that His Honor would be willing to work with us so that the Senate can come up with a version that is more acceptable to us, so that we can support, because we are one in the desire of the administration to provide for a better future for our Filipino. I don't think anyone in the hall, in the Senate, will disagree with that. But the manner in which we will go about it is very important, Your Honor, and we have to use utmost prudence in the exercise of our powers, because it's in our hands, Your Honor. That is also my appeal to our colleagues. It's in our hands. So we must, I hope we will take time to work together to craft a measure that is actually less risky. Because ano nga yan eh, kumbaga nga ano lang yan eh, what is your risk appetite? For the Filipino people, if there's extra money somewhere, walang problema. Pero kung pondo yon na directly contributing to their welfare, yung health nila, yung pabahay nila, medyo mahirap po sa akin na isipin na i-risk po yon. Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Mr. Sponsor.
Thank you very much, Your Honor. Thank you for the very
Thank you,
good
Senator Pia
line of
Cayetano,
questions.
Majority Leader. Thank you.